Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Mr. Rubio Used to Run, the Running Warehouse podcast. I'm Joe Rubio, the guy who used to run, and this is my wingman, Connor Blaylock. You are running these days, right?
I'm back running. I'm healthy.
Okay.
Maybe not running as much as our guest today.
Yeah.
Today, I hear these crazy stories about all your friends, and this one might be the most wild.
Well, yeah, he's a little bit, and I have to preface this by a couple things. One is we did this is version 2 of episode 16 because we failed to hit the record button on the last one. So we hope to replicate the magic again this year, or this time. And would you like to introduce our guest?
Yeah, well, I talked about crazy. This guy did years and years, I think about 15 years of 125-mile weeks, even maybe a few months of 200-plus mile weeks, 7-time All-American, 24-hour world relay champion, team champion. We'll hear a little bit more about that. We got Mad Dog himself, Bill Scobey. How you doing, Bill?
You're good, guys. Really good. Thanks for having me here.
No problem. Thanks for coming back.
Yeah.
Hey, Bill, let's just start with the beginning. How in the heck did you start running? I mean,
okay.
I'm sure you were
It just
running
didn't
around.
come out of the blue, right?
Yeah.
It actually did.
Yeah.
The President's Council on Physical Fitness under John F. Kennedy, 1961, had a series of different events for boys to find out. The whole thing behind it was to find out how fit we were compared to the Russians, secondary ed schools. So there were a series of events, a horizontal bar, see how high you could jump and touch the wall. One of the events was a half-mile run. And when it was my turn, I ran as fast as the varsity guys on the track team. So they said, there's no question about it, you're going to come out for track. And then the coach said, hey, how come you didn't go out for cross country last season? And I said, I don't run from LA to New York. And that's exactly what I thought cross country was. That's why I didn't go out. I didn't even like driving it, and I did that a few times. But no, that's a true story. And so anyway, that started it off. And then the big deal was I got on the team. They had A, B, and C, A, B, and varsity. And with my weight and age, I was a B runner. And I was already a junior. And we stood in line. I was dead last in line to get our uniforms before the first meet at Belmont High School in L.A. And I was dead last, and I was the only one without a pair of shorts. So at the track meet, you can't switch shorts in the middle of the track field. So Coach Zuniga told me to just get a pair of bathing suit trunks. So like me, I got a large pair of paisley print, red and black, because that was the school colors, swim trunks on, and that's what I ran in. First race I ever ran, I won. It surprised me to death, and that kind of like put the fire in me from that time on. I didn't lose a race that year, except when we went to the city meet. I didn't make the finals. I was in over my head. And it went from there. A year and a half later, I won the city cross-country championships. Then I went off to Pierce College under 2 great coaches. One was an Olympian, actually, and ran a PR of 4:08 in a mile at Pierce College, and won Southern Cal in cross-country, and went to the state, all kinds of accolades. And then I got drafted right in the middle of it. Because in 1964, I got in a motorcycle accident, so I didn't run for a year, and that disqualified me from being exempt to the draft, and so I wasn't exempt when the 1A status hit me, and I went in to the U.S. Army, and I ran for him, believe it or not. And a lot of guys were there. A lot of guys were running. Tracy Smith. I mean, the names of Mel Pender, who was there forever in the Army track team, and a bunch of half-milers from back east. And it was a great experience. These guys were a lot older than me and super good runners. And so while I was there, Coach Hunt from Humboldt started writing me. He said, when are you getting out? And I said, 2 years. And he said, you going to come to Humboldt? And I said, you betcha, because my high school principal was a graduate of Humboldt. And he knew I wanted to get into forestry, and then I ran, and he said, well, you ought to go to Humboldt State. So it's always sat in the back of my mind. So from that point on, as soon as I got out, end of December of '68, I went right to Humboldt. And it was like I died and went to heaven. Of course, I had real short hair, and everybody had real long hair because I just got out of the Army. And it was a culture shock. In the redwoods, you're running the redwoods every single day. And those guys already had started running big miles. They were running twice a day. They were running, most all the distance runners were running 100 miles, at least 100 miles a week. So that started that off. So that was basically the beginning of my running.
Right. And you did forestry? Was that it?
I went for that, but didn't have time for it. So I became a history major because I felt that I wanted to be a coach when I got out of college. So I could teach history and be a coach at the same time. So
right. Now, taking a step back, where'd you go to high school at?
I went to Cleveland High School in the San Fernando Valley.
Okay.
And it was a fairly new school. I think it had only been open a year when I went.
Right. And Pierce is a community college?
And Pierce is what they used to call a JC in those days in Woodland Hills.
Woodland Hills.
So it wasn't far away.
No.
And everybody that was a distance runner in the valley in those days went to Pierce College because of the coaching.
Well, and they also had that wicked cross-country course, that in Mount Sac.
And the cross-country course.
Yeah. It's just, it's
yes,
brutal.
The cross-country course is brutal. The pig pens and Forest Hill and
all that stuff.
Yeah.
Now, you told me you didn't run in shoes at Pierce.
For a couple of years, Pete Peterson, the coach there, was an advocate for strength building in your feet. He said, all those little tiny muscles in your feet, you need to be barefoot as much as you can. I was barefoot at home all the time after that. I was barefoot running. I ran on asphalt, concrete, barefoot. But there were a few runners around. Dale Story, one of them, he was ahead of me. He was a barefoot runner. There were a couple of guys in Sacramento who ran barefoot. But all the guys on our team ran barefoot. Training, we never ran on the track barefoot. It was a gravel track, but we ran on the inside curve, which was a grass, like a little mini grass track, and never had shoes on except racing.
And I'd imagine that foot strengthening really helped when you started doing that 120-plus mile weeks, even over 200 miles.
Absolutely.
Your body was ready for it.
Right, and I never wore socks and shoes all the while I was competing. It was just, slide those in over my feet and go.
You're like Ingebrigtsen.
Like
he says he doesn't wear socks because he's a professional runner.
Without the tattoos.
Yeah.
That you can see.
And so Humboldt, how long did you run at Humboldt? What happened there? You were All-American and so forth?
All-American 7 times there, 4 times there, 7 times altogether All-American. I won the Nationals in a Division II in the 3-mile, and was an All-American 3 or 4 times there, and then AAU All-American in marathon twice, and junior college several times All-American. So
awesome. And then did you take a break after Humboldt, or you just go into training?
After Humboldt, I went to work.
Yeah.
So I became a fireman almost immediately after graduating. Actually, I graduated and got my secondary ed, so I had another year, which was kind of cool too, because I was able to train and race. And that's when I ran 2:15 at Culver City at the end of that year in 1971.
And that was a California record, right?
And that was a California record until Craig Virgin broke it in 1978 at the Rock and Roll in San Diego. But you got to realize that Culver City was the only marathon on the West Coast until probably until after Shorter won the Olympics, and then there were a couple of them, one in L.A. and one in San Diego, and then Sacramento. A lot of places started holding them.
Yeah.
In fact, I ran them both the first and second L.A. Marathon, but it wasn't the same course. It ran from Dodger Stadium. Can you get this? Ran from Dodger Stadium. It ran in the hills around Dodger Stadium and then dropped down to Riverside Drive. And then at 22 miles, you come back up Stadium Drive. 22 miles in a marathon racing, and you're coming. I don't know if any have been to Dodger Stadium. That is a climb, and I've never seen that before in the end of a marathon. I mean, Palos Verdes was bad enough, but man, that hill was something.
Yeah. I mean, Western Hemisphere was pretty progressive in the sense of it was like one of the only West Coast marathons.
Very flat.
But also, women could actually officially compete
Yeah, the year I won, Cheryl Bridges won the nationals, and she won the first real women's division in the AAU at that time, and I think she ran like 2:40.
And then Jacqueline Hansen.
Then Jackie Hansen from that time on, and then Mickey Gorman.
Mickey Gorman, yeah. So he had some great runners.
Yeah, the marathoning, until after Shorter, the marathoning basically, the good runners were on the West Coast, all the good marathon runners. And you got to see them every time you race. You ran 10Ks against them, road races against them. And I wasn't training like I was training, in other words, with speed work, but I was doing a lot of distance still. I was still running over 100 miles a week and a full-time job with the fire service, which is really great because you work 5 days and then you're off 6. So I was able to travel a lot and in California and run a lot of races, a lot of road races.
Right. And before Shorter, there wasn't a lot of people running.
No.
Right.
There wasn't anybody running.
Yeah.
Well, you go for a 20-mile run on the roads in L.A., you didn't see another runner. You never saw a walker, except somebody that had to get from point A to point B.
Yeah.
It was.
And then after Shorter won, it
after
blew
Shorter
up.
run, it was all over.
Yeah.
It was blowing out of proportion.
And you talk about some of this higher mileage running. You're doing 120-mile plus weeks. How did you decide to start bumping up, and where did you find that limit when you said, okay, that's enough mileage?
Well, this is a good story. Jerry Lindgren, who was probably the best U.S. runner in those days, in the 60s, as a high schooler and on into until Prefontaine came along, on into that, and they had some great battles. But he was my roommate at the U.S. Olympic training camp in 1970, and we talked a lot about training, and he suggested that with the way I ran, pretty conservative, that I could be able to handle 200 miles a week, and my eyes must have shot up like coffee dishes, you know. I mean, I couldn't imagine running that far, and 125 miles a week was pretty much, I thought, my limit. I went to 140 the summer before for a couple of weeks, but that year with him in there, and I figured, I looked at that little scrawny guy and I said, if this guy can do that, I'm sure I could do it. And well, that guy was a funny guy. Anyway, I tried. I did it. I went back and I spent, I think it was almost 5 weeks, and a race interrupted it. But I was running 210 miles for the week, 30 miles a day for the whole time, and 20-mile run on Sunday plus a 10-mile warm down lactic acid diffuser in the evening, and just so I could get that kind of miles in and see what it did to me, and it beat the hell out of me, I'll tell you.
So what was a normal week look like? I mean, I get the Sunday run, it's 20 miles and then 10 in the evening.
Normal week would be I'd get up and run, go to school and run 6 miles with the guys on the flat bottomlands at Arcata, and then it was either 12 miles of road running or 12 miles of interval, and it usually was alternating every other day. It'd be interval one day, 12 miles of distance running the next. Sometimes we'd run in the sand on the dunes, through the redwoods, it made it a lot easier. You didn't really notice the miles that much. So that was my 125 mile a week.
Okay, so 6 and 12. Were you running 3 times a day?
And ran twice a day.
Oh, it's twice a day.
Ran twice a day.
Okay. Nice stuff.
20-mile days, basically, is what
Yeah.
I was running.
Yeah.
That's a lot of miles.
It's a lot of miles.
It's a lot of miles.
Yeah,
But
kids
everybody was doing it, so nobody thought any different
Right.
of it.
But were you doing 30-mile days? How were you getting 30 miles in a day?
I would run 12, 6, and 12.
Wow.
And 6 was intervals?
6 was speed work at lunchtime.
Okay. So you did 12. Was it hard in the morning?
No. Well, hard compared to now.
Yeah. So 12 in the morning.
Probably 6-minute mile pace, which was easy for me. And when I was firing on all cylinders in the evening, if I was doing the speed, sometimes I'd do speed work, twice a day speed work. There's 6 miles worth, and then 12 miles of speed work at that. You got to realize, though, part of that, 4.5 miles of that was a warm-up, which was also interval speed work. We used to call it the Igloy warm-up, and it was 4.5 miles, 2 miles of jog, and then a series of 110s with a short rest. Everything was based on the amount of distance you ran per interval, which included how short the rest was, and that as you got further into the year, the rest became shorter and the speed became faster. I doubt if I could ever done what I did unless I did both. There's some guys that can just do speed work all the time, just hammer speed work, and they get really fit. And then there are other guys who can only do distance, LSD they used to call it back then, thanks to Joe Henderson, the editor and owner of Runner's World. But it just never got me anywhere. People would beat me all the time if I was running that slow. I used to run with my girlfriend. I thought I was going to die. It was so slow. But everything was based on speed. Everybody was running fast. And I had a kid, a high school kid from Ferndale, Danny Mullins, came up to school there in 70, and he had already run 4:17 in high school, which was really fast in those days. So I had a built-in training partner. Everything I did, he did. And he got really good. I think he ended up running 8:50 in the steeplechase at Humboldt by the time he was done. And then he left there and got into forest management and never ran again.
That was the end of that.
Lost track of him. I think he wrote me 20 years ago or so, and I think it was 20 or 30 years ago he wrote me. Said he was living a good life in Dunsmuir on the...
Oh, yeah, Dunsmuir. They got a great burger joint there. I forget the name of the place.
They got a great bar.
Yeah, the burger joint and bar and all that kind of stuff, yeah.
Yeah, but it was... What's the river there? The McClatchy? The McClatchy River.
Yeah,
and that's what he was guiding rubber rafters.
Okay.
At that time, 20,
Right.
30 years
Right.
ago. I don't know what he's doing now. I mean,
So some of your training partners up at Humboldt, who'd you
a
have?
lot of training partners.
Yeah.
Gary Tuttle, the first year I was there, and then Vince and Gary and I. And then Vince stayed on, and he and I did a lot of speed work together. Then when Danny Mullins came on, another partner.
Yeah.
We did a lot of miles of speed. On the inside of the track, Humboldt was a funny configuration because it had a room problem, the room for the track. The straightaways were 120, and the turns were 100.
Yeah, so it's
which
tight,
made
tight,
the 440.
tight. Yeah.
Yeah, it's real tight turns.
Yeah.
And then around the inside of the track was, I don't remember if you remember this when you were up there for camp and stuff, the sawdust.
Yeah.
About 42 inches wide all the way around the track. And that made it a lot easier on our feet. And sometimes I'd run barefoot there too,
Right.
on the sawdust.
Well, I know Cal Poly, because the Poly track has 110 straights, versus like a 90, or
Right.
even like Oxy is like 65 or something stupid like
Right.
that. But so Poly will do the track workouts like in lane 7, 8.
Right, right.
To ease the
Right.
whatever, the turn.
Right.
That sort of thing.
But when you have a 90-yard turn, that's pretty
really tight, really
it's
tight.
almost like running indoors.
Yeah.
And then when I first got there, it rained every single day. Hunt said, well, you can go run 11 laps to the mile in the field house, or you can go out here and run in the rain. After about 2 days running 11 laps to the mile in the field house, I said, I'm running in the rain. Heck with this stuff. And, of course, the fun thing was, what rain? You'd be pouring down rain, and the guys didn't care. You got so used to it.
Right. Well, the new stadium at Humboldt's awesome.
Oh.
The Redwood Bowl.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of the best track
It's based
stadiums.
upon the old one. It's
Yeah.
basically the same configuration.
Yeah. But it's a lot like a mini Hayward Field.
Exactly.
It's beautiful.
Yeah,
It's absolutely
it is beautiful.
gorgeous track.
And when you talk about these legends like Gary Tuttle, the Redwoods, the Dunes, barefoot running, what I think about in my head was the Harriers video. Anyone who's been around the sport for a while has probably seen it either in its original form, which you can look up on YouTube, but it was also had some highlights and some Nike ads back in the day. What was this video all about, and what was it like to kind of live through this?
Well, when I got there, it was just wrapping up the filming. It was two guys that were doing their thesis for theater, their degree in theater ed or whatever they call it. And I got in on the tail section of the thing, and those guys said, you don't want to go do that. Those guys, all they're doing is filming. Had I known that film would make a big deal, I'd have definitely been in the last few filming of it. But good story about that when I got there. My dad, who for years was in the film industry, and he was the vice president of Color by Deluxe, which is a subsidiary of 20th Century Fox. And when I got a copy of, Hunt gave me a copy of it, of the Harriers, a 17-minute film, by the way, in black and white. And I showed it to my dad my first Christmas back home after it was this Christmas of '69. he was amazed by it. And Hunt said, well, maybe he'll make us some copies and we can sell them, and then pay our way to all the national meets and go to the Penn Relays and fly to Mount Sac instead of driving. You got to realize Humboldt's very isolated. The closest place to go outside of the school itself to race was 6 hours away by car in those days, because there's no freeway. So I said, oh, that's a good idea. So Dad was more than happy to do it. So he made 100 copies of the film, 16 millimeter, and sent them to Hunt. And the two guys that made the film got wind of it and started a lawsuit. Well, they didn't know who they were dealing with, first of all. They were dealing with Color by Deluxe and 20th Century Fox, and also Humboldt State. I don't know the details of it, but all of a sudden it went quiet. We couldn't sell any outside of using that money for the school. And I think what 20th Century Fox did, my dad would never talk about it because he was pissed more than I've ever seen him. I think they ended up paying him off for those 100 films, figuring that, if we sold them for 100, which was what we did, we sold them for $100 a piece. I think he's only got about 10 of them left of all of that in the archives at the jogging shop up there.
One part that I remember from that video specifically that I think stands out to a lot of people is when you guys, the Humboldt crew, is running through the streets and everyone is looking at these runners.
The cows are looking at them.
The cows are looking at them. The people are looking at them like they're just weirdos. Like it was like running wasn't normal back then.
It wasn't.
Yeah.
Nobody ran. Even the elk would look at us at Prairie Creek. Yeah, it was strange. And when I look back on it, it was strange. It wasn't strange then because we were used to it. One of our Sunday runs, we'd start in Arcata and we run all the way through Eureka, cutting then Eureka, and then go into the Tall Grove Forest down in Fortuna.
For those who don't know what Eureka is, it is like Make America Great Again.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a logging town.
That's right. It's a logging town. It's very hard to get to,
and it's very hard. I mean, it's a hardy. If you go in the wrong bar, you're in trouble.
Yeah, yeah. We won't go into politics, but yeah.
So you guys run with
the hippies drank on the Arcata Plaza, and the redneck lumberjacks drank in the bars, and there were like 6 to 8 bars on that plaza.
Yeah, but you guys running as hippies through Eureka, probably maybe some cans flying your way and things like that.
Yeah, we were shirtless and just in running shorts, and people. Yeah, we got things thrown at us, cat calls. Yeah. We only listened to the girls on a cat call.
So how did this, you ran 2:15, you're running at an elite level at the time. How long did this go on for, and when did you eventually have to, say, that's enough?
When I started competing, usually, I think about 73 or 74. I think I ran 2:17 at Avenue of the Giants in 73.
Didn't that record just get broken?
And it just got 49 years. I had the record. It just got broken by 40 seconds by some jerk from Sacramento. Hey, they're meant to be broken. So 49 years is enough. You couldn't make it to 50 though. That'd be nice.
So you're running marathons. You're running high mileage. At what point did you say marathon's not enough? I got to go to the ultra marathon.
And I did that. I stupidly did that back in 1988. I decided I was going to run a 100-miler because all of my friends were running it. Gary wouldn't do it. None of my sane friends, my insane friends were doing it. Tree trimming Willie and pub crawl Joe. And they were running 100-milers, and I'm going, I could do that. I just never tried it. So, first you got to qualify. Oh, okay. So we're going to go down to Lawndale, and we're going to run a 50-mile, and that'll qualify you for Western States. I think they had 2 or 3 ultra runs in California in those days, but the granddaddy of it all was the Western States 100-miler up in Tahoe. So I ran a 50. I was already 40, I'm trying to think. I was 43 years old, and I ran a 50 miler in 6 hours, a little over 6 hours, and I got second in the thing. So, shoot, I only have to go twice as far, except the only problem is I could barely walk when I got done with 50 miles and running at that pace. So, but I gave it a shot, and I made 50 miles of the Western States, and I said, I'm not doing this. This is not my thing. I got too many miles on my wheels, and it's just not my thing. I like running faster anyway, and get it over with. So the farthest I ever really ran, I ran a 15K, the national or the U.S. championship in the 15K a couple of times, the 10Ks all the time in L.A. areas. So, and that went on. That kind of competition went on for me until about 19. Let's see, I ran the Avenue in 2:23, and I was 37 in 82, and I ran 3 marathons that year within a 2-month period, and that was the last time I really ran seriously in a marathon. I ran Lompoc, I ran LA, and I ran Avenue of the Giants. Oh, and I ran the Ventura, so 4 of them, and I was done. I was done. And I love training. I love running. I just aesthetically pleased. But in the meantime, all through the 70s and 80s, Gary Tuttle took off and was just
He was on fire.
amazing. He won everything on the West Coast. Nobody could stay with him, and went to the Olympic trials 3 times. Once in the 10,000 and marathon wasn't really his distance. It was really too far for him. But he wasn't a high mileage guy.
But he was a cross-country animal.
He's a cross-country animal, and he could hammer. He just hammer guys. They get on his shoulder, and he just keep pushing. And I was proud of him. He did really good, and I think he ended up in '85. He ended up second at Boston. The year it was really hot, and Steve Jones won it. And I was at the fire station working, and I kept looking over my shoulder to see him on TV. He's running the Boston Marathon. He's getting second. We're screaming, and Steve Jones keeps walking because it was like 85 degrees. Keeps walking. Gary's going to catch him. He's going to catch him. The only thing is Gary's slowing down too. But I was a very slow Boston that year.
Yeah.
But he's got second. That's really cool.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
So the runners from the 70s, which people did you really respect, looked up to? Or
Steve Prefontaine, beyond a doubt. He was a hero. When I was a senior and I ran at Drake in the NC2A championships, Division I, that was Prefontaine's freshman year, and was in a couple of movies. Supposedly he had a tryst the night before, and after the 3 mile, his foot was all bloody, and apparently he stepped on a bed frame or something. I don't know what it is. There were more ribald versions of that story, but that's what was in the movie versions. And he won, that as a freshman, he won it, and I think I was 6th or 8th or something like that in that thing. But it was a school record at the time, so I was 2 on him. Hunt was there. Luckily, we didn't have to run prelims. We ran the finals on Saturday. The prelims were supposed to be on Wednesday, but there weren't enough people entered into that had qualified, so they didn't have to run it, thank goodness, because I was sicker than a dog. I got some kind of little flu mung thing, and I was in bed for the whole time until Saturday morning. And
did you have much interaction with Pre? Did you ever race with him? Did you ever?
I flew back with him from that race, actually, and sat across from him. And I said a few things to him, just jumped. Oh, I rode an elevator one time with him. I forgot. Shorter, more, Galloway, and Prefontaine and me were in an elevator going up to when the Twilight Meet, they called it in those days. Pre was still around. They were having an award ceremony up there, and I rode up with what I think the marathoners, and then Pre was in the elevator there too, acting like a bunch of crazy guys, and everybody had a beer in their hands. So I knew I was in good company.
So back to Vince Engle, I don't know if anybody remembers. I know we do. Is those Nike ads, the Just Do It ads, the black and white, and like I don't know, a tribute to the Harriers.
Right.
So
in fact, he used parts of the Harrier for
that thing.
For the commercials.
Right. And where's some of the Vince? He went to Humboldt. Then Did you go to film school or you went to advertising?
He went immediately into advertising with his art major.
Right, but he was Wyden Kennedy, I think, right?
Yeah, and then Nike contracted him when he moved to Australia. He's dying to live in Australia, being a runner. He wanted to go. He and his wife and a couple of the other guys and their wives moved to Australia, and they were teaching, and they didn't like it. And Vince said, "Heck with this." Then Nike, he got contracted with Nike and then they brought him over to Portland. And that was probably 3 years later. So probably in the mid-'80s, he came to Portland. Then he started his own company in San Francisco. He left Portland, started his own company in San Francisco. I'm shortening this version. And he hears this, "No, I didn't go that way." It's okay. He's living in Barcelona now. He's living a good life. But he and his wife. But yeah, he had his hands deep in it. I mean, he represented the Giants. He represented Disney, 20th Century Fox, my dad's company. His what was the name of the company? Booter Engel, or something like that. Anyway, he did really well.
Yeah, but he did some pretty famous ads, like the Charles Barkley ad.
The Charles Barkley, I am not your role model. That was his. Oh, yeah, the number of classic ones that he put on, and not only that, I mean, his autographed baseball collection is probably one of the best around. But he got them because he was doing all this filming and advertisement and for different companies, and every time he saw a baseball player, of course, he had him autograph the baseball. It's cool. He's an interesting guy to talk to. He knows everybody. Knows everybody in the industry. Knows everybody. And the head of film in a lot of countries, and a lot of professional sports guys. Jordan, some high level guys anyway.
Yeah. So how many? Back to the running thing. How many years did you average 120 miles a week?
Probably averaged 120. Ran 120 to 125 miles. Probably close to 20.
Okay.
Over 140.
Okay, and then how many years did you do over 100 miles a week?
40.
40. And when did you stop doing that?
When I was 60.
Okay.
So from the time I was 20 until I was 60.
You averaged 100 miles a week.
Average 100 miles a week.
And you have to remember, this was not during a time that we have the shoes that we have today with max cushioning,
No.
the super foams. What do you think about those shoes compared to what?
Well, that's why I ran barefoot.
Yeah.
I couldn't stand. But no, that you put on a pair of these shoes, and you think you're in the greatest shoe that there is. I mean, when I first got these, I thought they were wonderful.
So what are these? And in what year did you get these?
Well, these I got in 1970. And Joe, you know the name of those.
It's a Spartan B.
Spartan B.
And this is what Salazar wore when he first got to Oregon. It's what Rudy Chapa wore when he first got.
Oh, okay.
So they have the
All
pictures of them at the what's the community college right next in Eugene, and they have regionals there. But you could see these Chapa and Salazar running in these.
And they're the only track spike that had a heel.
A heel, yeah.
Wow.
And that was
A plate.
Yeah. And then these are brand new.
Yeah, I bought those straight out of the. In fact, for years I had the box, and finally the mice got to it.
Yeah. So what are these?
Those are what we would call a Tiger Boston, and they came in a box that and then this little plastic bag. I had little feet in those days, size 9, but yeah, it came in a box, and then in this thing, and they were like $8.
Wow.
And where'd you buy them at?
I think I paid 20 at at the secondhand store in Grants Pass, and the outlet there. And I knew I was going to keep them. I knew I was never going to run them again because one day I put these things on. They're all shattered. And I couldn't even walk in the living room on them things. And I'm sure if you bent it, they would crack to pieces.
And obviously it looks like an ASICS shoe, but this was pre-ASICS, the
Tiger.
Onitsuka Tiger days.
Yeah. Right there. It just started to turn.
Yes.
Onitsuka Tiger.
Yeah. Was that the brand you tended to run in most?
Yeah. Not because I got them for free, but it's because nobody gave shoes away in those days,
Right.
unless you ran 9.9 in the 100-yard dash. But those are the shoes that I ran, and the only ones that really fit me. I didn't like Nikes; they were too narrow for my feet.
Do you remember Nike in the early days of the Blue Ribbon Sports?
Oh yeah. John Bork down in Santa Monica, by UCLA, and he started that store down there. You know John?
Yeah.
And good guy. And I knew Mike Larrabee, who was the huge rep. He's here. He was here locally in Oregon.
His son lives over at the country club. I talked to his son.
Okay. Here,
Yeah.
right here. He did. In fact, Mike used to give me Adidas shoes every now and then. I didn't like them, so I gave them to my dad. But
Well, seeing Blue Ribbon Sports, seeing Nike come up, did you ever think it was going to be as big of a giant as it is now? And do you kick yourself for not buying some stock?
Yeah, there you go. Well, I wasn't that smart. Oregon was a start because of Bowerman. He started making the waffle sole in his wife's waffle iron, and that was really the start of Nike. That's where Nike got kicked off, and of course Oregon wore Nike forever, and I had no idea. Schroeder changed everything when he won the Olympics in the marathon. And actually he won again 4 years later, but somebody cheated. And he was amazing. He was like one of my heroes too. The guy, he never lost races. He always won everything he went to, he ran. In fact, the year that I ran 2:15, that was the fastest marathon in the United States and in South America. Fastest on the two continents, the Western Hemisphere. And it was the Western Hemisphere marathon. Only one American beat me that year, and that was Shorter. He ran Fukuoka the same day, of all things. He ran 2:12 something.
So we see these shoes. You've seen the shoes nowadays, how much of a shift. What's your experience in the shoe world? Did you sell shoes like we did back in the day?
I did for a couple of years down in Port Hueneme, but I didn't have time for it. And I had two partners that knew nothing about it. I was spending too much time there, and not doing what I should be doing, which was working at the fire department. And so I got out of it. It was a lot of work. It was really a lot of work, trying to get futures set up and getting your accounts going. And I had everybody except for New Balance. Tuttle had New Balance, and we were kind of a little rough time there for a couple of years, but then I got out of it and patched things up. And then Hunt, Gary, Vince, and I had a running camp that we started in 1975 up at Humboldt. Went on. It's still going on actually there, but we were all involved in that until about 2004, 2005.
But wasn't that the first running camp in?
The first one was in 75.
But the first running camp, like
that was the first organized running
ever.
camp that advertised on Track and Field News.
Wow.
And first in the U.S. as far as I know.
Wow.
And that was a lot of good runners came through that program.
Well, Gary's place is what, Inside Track?
And Gary's place in Ventura was Inside Track.
Right.
Yeah. And he had that
Forever. Yeah.
His dad started in the sports shoe thing, a place called All Pro, which was down the street from where Gary was. And Gary worked for him for a while, and then he branched off. His dad didn't want to deal with the shoes. He and his partner didn't want to deal with the shoes, so he branched off, and he had shoes up the street from there on the top of Main Street. And he was there until probably 2008. And so from 75 to 2008.
Right. Did he sell it to Josh Spiker?
He sold it to Spiker, and then Spiker moved it to someplace else, and he sold it and rebought it. And now it's still on Main Street, but it's closer to the high school on Main Street.
Right. Yeah.
And Gary's wife works there.
Really?
Yeah, because she got nothing else to do. She retired, and she works in the running shoe place.
Yeah, I flew back with Spiker and his wife from Boston Marathon. So
this year?
Yeah.
Oh,
this
okay.
year. Yeah, it was good.
Did he run it?
No, he was just there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, checking things out.
Huh.
Yeah, so it was good.
Well, I mean, we've right now it's trail running season. We got a lot of people running, and I've noticed there's some poison oak out on the trails. Yeah. What's your experience with poison oak?
Well,
do you do well with it?
It's not my buddy. Poison oak Poison oak has kept me out of a lot of races.
Okay.
Because I'd get it so bad that I'd have oozing sores all over my body. And sometimes I was stupid because I ran through it and didn't realize I was in it until, and then I started getting the telltale itch in a day or two. And but I knew it was seasonal because I'd only get it once a year. So what I decided to do, I never paid I never paid any money whatsoever for a golf ball. And I used to play a lot of golf. So one time in the early 2000s, I knew where all these golf balls were because I could see them through the fence as I walked down the fairway. And I said, man, I had to get in there and get that. But then I started looking around, and it was bushes and bushes of poison oak. So I got this wild idea without Googling, because I don't know if there was Google in those days, that I was going to be an Indian because I'd heard things about how they'd put a leaf in their cheek and just keep changing it all the time, always have it. So they never got poison oak. And I figured an Indian, if anybody's going to get it, Indian, because they were immune to it. I said, that's a good idea. I'm going to do that, so I'll only get it once, and it'll be interior. If I'll be immune to it. So I did it. First of all, my fingers touched it. I put it in my mouth, scratched myself on my eyes and everything, and I went in and picked up a whole reverse backpack full of balls, just tons of them. I had a wand where I was picking them up, and I was raking them in. Oh, look at all the balls. 2 days later, I couldn't see. My eyes were shut. My tongue was swelled up so bad I could hardly breathe. And when it passed through me, I looked like a baboon on National Geographic, but standing in a tree, because I couldn't even put shorts on. It was so horrible. But luckily, I knew that I could get rid of it with cortisone shots, and within 3 or 4 days, it was gone. But I was basically sitting around doing nothing for 3 or 4 days.
Safe to say that was a taper week. You weren't running much that
I wasn't
week.
doing any running right there, though. Mileage went down at that point.
That lowered the average for the year.
But that's my story. Deja vu all over again.
Yeah. Well, welcome back to episode 3 of podcast number 16, the Cursed Podcast.
It's something with Bill. They don't want us to film this.
It's
No, they
me,
don't.
for sure.
They don't. So just so people in listener land know, the power went out, which has never happened in the building before, but Bill's here, and so that's what happened.
I lose a lot of power.
But going off of memory, we were talking about your bout of poison oak, I think was the last thing.
Geez, yeah.
We were dealing with there. But back to the running portion of things. I know golf's important and all that types of things.
Right.
But tell us about a couple of these relays that you'd run. Like, the relays were a big deal, like 24-hour relays and 10-mile relays. And explain a couple of those things.
And postal relays, there were several different types of them. And from what you told me that they only have one postal now.
Yeah.
High school 2-mile.
Yeah, but now you have the internet and you have all kinds of goofy
right.
crap going on.
Yeah. And I've been trying to find the results of that 2-man 10-mile, which was a postal that Vince Engel and I ran in 1971, the spring of 71, and we averaged a really fast time. The world record at the time, which I think is still the world record, is Ryan and Lawson in 1965. The only reason I know this is I looked it up after we talked the last time. Ran 41:10.8, and that was the world record for as long as I can remember.
And it just you alternate laps, right? Or you set it up any way you want.
Quarter miles,
okay.
Quarter miles in those days, and which is farther than 400 meters. And we averaged. I averaged 61.4 or 5, and he averaged 62.4 or 5, and. What I remember is we were the number 1 collegiate group, and I believe we were probably number 1 that year. And that is absolutely the hardest thing I've ever done.
And what was your overall time?
Overall time was like 41, high 41s.
So with the alternating 400s, you're basically running each 5 miles at close to 4-minute pace. Is that what it came out to?
Yeah, we're averaging 4-minute mile pace.
Wow.
Yeah.
That kind
for
of
20 laps.
Wow.
For 40 laps.
Wow.
and I know it was posted. I've been looking for it and looking for it. Track and Field News and the USATF at the time, which was the AAU, were the two entities that did these postals. And the coaches just, took the times, verified it, signed their name to it, and sent it into the USATF. And I saw the results several months later, probably towards the end, in their publication towards the end of 71. So I'm not even sure the date. There, quite a few of the guys that are still around, still alive, remember it, that we did it, but they don't know exactly how fast we ran or our splits.
I'll put Sig on it. Sig Lindstrom, the managing editor of Track Field News.
Yeah.
I'll see him at the trials. I'll task him with finding this information.
Right, because there's a publication that came out.
Yeah.
Because I saw the one in '65 when they set the record, that Lawson and Ryan set the record. And then I saw a result in '75. So we're 71, so it's got to be
somewhere in there.
Someone's got it.
Yeah.
Maybe one of our fans will be able to do some detective work and pick it up.
And let us know. And this, what else? You had a 24-hour relay,
24-hour relay.
How was that made up?
I got nominated to go to the U.S. distance running training camp, Olympic training camp at Washington State University in Pullman, Washington. And there were like 30 guys. They're the best distance runners in the nation at that time. Part of it was some guy had a wise idea, and I think it was Tom Fleming. Had a wise idea. He says, you got a Postal thing going on now called a 10-man 24-hour relay. And I'm thinking, 24 hours? and I think we can get a team together. We not only got a team together, we got two teams together. And we did this. We alternated miles this time. 10-man team, alternating miles. Nobody can drop out. So as soon as somebody drops out, then you're running with 9 guys. I think we ended up with 8 guys and when we set the world record, it was 395 miles and almost a quarter mile.
And what did you start out mile pace, and what were you doing by the end?
I started out running in the high 420s, but that's my training. Yeah. That's how fast I ran, just doing training repeats in the mile. So it was easy for me. The hard part of it later on is waiting 40 minutes, and it's your turn again.
Yeah.
And you just start to nod off, and Scobey, you're up.
Mad Dog.
The Mad Dog. Well, actually, that's when that got coined. Jerry Jobski, who was on the B team, I was on the A team, Jobski was on the B team, he said, the press asked him, who is that guy running so? And Jobski said, that's the Mad Dog. And so they put that in print. And then ever since that, in 1970, ever since then, that's what some people don't even know my real name. Yeah. I just go by Mad Dog.
Now, when you came here, one of our workers came up and said, Mad Dog's here. I'm like, oh, ready for business.
Guard your ankles.
Yeah. So who's on your team? Some of the prominent names.
Lindgren handed off to me. I'm trying to think. The steeplechase NC2A champ, Steve, that year. I can't remember these guys' names. God, 50-something years, almost 60 years. Lindenberg, who was a steeplechaser. There were a couple of steeplechasers on our team. Jerry Jobski, I think, was on our team, not on the other team. Tom Fleming ran the B team. Mark Covert ran the B team.
Wow. The famous for his streaking.
I mean, it's
not that type of streaking, no. Mile streaking.
Yeah, the mile streaking. I remember went to his 25th anniversary that he ran every day for 25 years straight, and there were a lot of big name people there.
But, yeah, because it was him and Ron Hill going at it, right?
Yeah, and I think Mark ended up surpassing him.
Yeah,
and only because Ron Hill probably couldn't get out of bed. He was like 100 years old. Seemed like he was 100 years old when we were running. And then there's John Sutherland, who also has a long streak. And I think he's right behind Covert.
Okay.
He's waiting for Covert to peel off, and he's going to take up. So I think Covert's done.
He's done.
Yeah.
So what do you remember what you averaged for that?
What I averaged right around, I would have to say right around 440, something like that. And my fastest time was 421. My slowest time was right around 450.
Okay. You remember?
So
how many
I broke 5 minutes every.
Yeah. How many did you do? Do you remember?
I did 30.
30?
30. Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, people aren't doing stuff like that anymore. I mean, there's still the hood to coast and some of those styles, but I mean, that's another level.
Yeah, maybe you have an idea on this. You know, I don't know, but we have so many young people running so fast in the 1500, the 5K, and the 10K, and we are
Unbelievable.
We are not that good in the marathon on the men's side.
Yeah, well, that's hard.
I guess it's hard, but you know, when you have guys running 26:50 something, and we have multiple guys in the U.S. doing that, and we don't have anybody under 207. I mean, we're talking like Bill Rogers kind of times.
Yeah.
Without the shoes.
Without the shoes.
Without the shoes.
Right.
Well, and you're talking about Africans who are running 2 hours.
Yeah.
You know, all of the Africans.
Right, and they're
even
running,
their mothers are
roughly
running
the same
that
times
fast.
in the 10K, maybe slightly faster, 28:48 or something,
Yeah.
26:48. But yeah, I don't have a reason in my head. I just didn't know if you put any thought into it or.
I mean, when I left, when I was at Humboldt, there were only 4 guys in the world of ever high school guys that had ever run under 4 minutes.
Yeah.
And now there's 400 of them.
I know there's
a
whole
lot
bunch.
of them.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And every weekend, some other guy, some new high schooler runs under 4 minutes.
Yeah.
This is shoes.
Yep.
There's got to be.
Yeah.
It's got to be
The
part of
shoes
it.
and the tracks.
Yeah.
We were out on gravel tracks. Humboldt, we had a rubberized asphalt track, and in the wintertime it was hard as ice.
Yeah, we had that at Pauley too.
That black surface.
And actually, we had 2 tracks at Pauley. We had dirt track over by the library, and then we had the asphalt track, and everyone trained on the dirt track because you didn't get as many stress
when I was
fractures.
living here in the 80s when Mark was here.
Yeah.
When it first showed up.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the track surface and the shoes make all the difference.
And also, nutrition and
training.
rest and those types of
all the
things.
little things that you
Well,
kind of add up.
back when we were running, I mean, nutrition was pizza and
Nobody
mayonnaise,
ever
right?
talked about it.
No,
They
just
said,
drank beer.
what do you eat? Everything I can.
Yeah.
And 2, you got trainers now. You got equipment that are not running their what they would call, I guess in our day, cross-training type equipment that you can do everything. People are getting to the pool more. They're running on treadmills that are beautiful. They got you all wired up in there, and there's all kinds of things that make you faster these days than pure running. And let me tell you, the only reason I did what I did is because I ran a lot of miles and I ran a lot of fast stuff. Both. I could have never done it without both of them. There are some kids that can only last on short distance but fast, and there are others that can't do it unless they're running long and slower.
Yeah.
The big thing is don't get injured.
Well, yeah. I mean, you're
Where's the
pretty
happy medium?
brutal, right? I mean,
Well, I was brutal, and I didn't really get hurt until my mid-70s, and that's probably because I was abusing myself different ways other than running. I used to get hurt at work a lot because I'd pulling, I was 130 pounds pulling 130 pounds worth of hose for a quarter of a mile, during high fire season. And, I had knee problems, a couple of surgeries on both knees, all kind back problems. I strained my stomach muscles when I fell through a floor in a big fire at an ice packing plant, and I was out 6 weeks. I couldn't even stand up straight. I looked like an old man with rheumatoid arthritis walking around. Of course, I wasn't running.
Well, everyone's running journey eventually has to end. But you had
Yes.
a solid run.
I had a good run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can say that I lasted a long time.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for my dogs, I probably wouldn't have lasted the other 10 years from 2000. By the time I was 50, I had a couple of Jack Russells, and I had to run them every day. Otherwise, they'd wear me out. And that kept my mileage up.
Yeah.
'Cause I'd run one 10 miles, and then I'd come back and get the other one and run 10 miles. So I get 20-mile run.
They looked at you like, that's one mad dog.
So
and then I played golf. In between.
yeah. So what do you do now?
I play a little golf now, not as much as I used to. I basically walk. Everything I do is walking. I walk 4 to 5 miles every day. Sometimes up mountains. We got a couple of good sized peaks around my house, and I walk up there and back down just as long as I get about an hour and a half worth of walking in. And I think that's what's keeping me afloat. That's what's keeping me perpendicular to the earth. And no soreness. I've been free of all kinds of maladies for 15 years now. I had a heart attack in 2010 with they went in and found a 100% blockage in my right coronary artery, and they put 3 stents in there, and I recovered from it perfectly. I have no problems with my heart now, and they said I suffered with it for a long time, and I could tell, when I got out of surgery, it's like I was 20 years younger. All of a sudden, everything was brighter, and
there's
so
unicorns.
I was going
by.
downhill fast without really knowing it. Well, I had a heart attack. I ended up on the floor, but then I've had a spacer put into my sciatic nerve area of my spine, lower spine. I've had fusion in my neck. Mainly, this stuff is from work. Being a fireman and weighing 130 pounds.
I'm sure 120 miles a week for 20 years maybe didn't help.
That doesn't help your legs either.
Exactly. Well, Bill, I want to thank you for this flashback. It's a time machine.
Oh, yeah.
There's going to be all these kids that are listening to this. No, hopefully they do. Get a history lesson.
Yeah.
Trinity's much different now.
Hey,
but
thanks for having me. It's great.
Anytime.
It's fun reminiscing.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm not going to forget this week.
What?
Comment, subscribe. What else do you need to do?
You got to like.
You got to like. That's right. Okay, I'll get this right one of these days.
One of these days.
We're only on number 16.
Yeah,
but,
we'll get it.
Anyways, thank you for your time, too.
Thanks, Bill.
Cool. Awesome.
Thanks, you
Till next time.
All right.
Peace out.